My fiance, 28-year-old male, and I, 25-year-old female, have been together and lived together for 5 years. We have been through so much together, and I can't imagine my life without him. He was the best boyfriend, would spoil me and treat me with respect and so much love. He proposed to me 1 week ago with a beautiful emerald ring, as the color green has much symbolism to our relationship. Throughout our relationship, we have not followed any kind of religion, but we talked about joining a church one day that felt right for us both. It just never happened until recently. 5 months ago, he started school again, which is online. He went from full-time to casual with his job, to be able to attend school and study. He works maybe once per month now. I am a full-time nurse and have been paying for everything. His school is very easy, so he actually has a lot of free time during the day. He's been working on finding a new job, but ever since he's been at home not working, he started reading the Bible and talking about it a lot. At first, I thought nothing of it, and I was excited to start reading it with him and join a church with him. We had always talked about it, so I figured, okay, now it's finally happening. He read the entire Old Testament in 2 weeks. Then all he talked about was religion. He didn't speak of anything else. He forced me to watch 2 movies about Jesus, read Bible scriptures, and listen to Christian music. At this point, I told him he needs to slow down a bit. He's only been into religion for 2 weeks, and he's already made it his whole personality. He stopped having intimacy with me after 5 years of doing it nearly every day because Jesus is watching. He began to change as a person, too, being overly nice. For example, he ordered an iced coffee at McDonald's, and when the cashier gave it to him, he said, "Oh my gosh, look at that. That looks amazing. You are so good at your job. Thank you so much." That's just one of many examples. She frowned at him and walked away. It started to seem like he was actually trying to be Jesus. Mind you, it's only been 3 weeks of starting religion. He changed his lock screen from me to Jesus. I was his lock screen for 5 years, so that was alarming for me. He started to play Christian music nonstop and listen to podcasts about religion on top of reading the Bible. He also started making religious Facebook posts multiple times per day, to the point where my friends asked me if he was okay, because they said they felt like they were watching a manic episode unfold. He was not even focusing on school anymore. Then he found a church and started going to it. He made tons of church friends. In his phone, their contact names had tons of emojis next to them. My contact name, his new fiance and girlfriend of 5 years, had no emojis. We were supposed to start going to church together and find a church together, so I was kind of upset when he just chose for us both. Still, I wanted to support him, so I went to the church with him. I felt so out of place. The pastor and elders kept asking me tons of questions. I felt like I was being probed. The women kept telling me to have babies that will follow Christ as well. I felt like I was joining a cult. My boyfriend was loving every second of it, though. It was so weird because he seemed to be more into the religion than anyone else there, despite the fact that they've been invested in it their whole lives. The next day, all he would talk about was church. He wanted to get a job there and start going every day. I was starting to feel like it was taking over our lives and his personality. So I told him that. His response was, "What's wrong with that? What bad could come out of it?" I said, "I just want to ease into it, but he's diving in head first." We had a huge argument. I was at work. He left the apartment to go somewhere 4 hours away. He told me he didn't spend any money to get there, and that his friend picked him up. I later found out that he took the train and did spend money. So he lied, not very Christian, of someone who makes it their whole personality. I told him this makes him a hypocrite, leaving his fiancée in a time of turmoil and lying. When I called him out on that, he blocked me. I later saw photos of him out with his friends drinking. He calls my friends degenerates when his own friends are cokeheads and in and out of jail. When he finally came home, he never took any accountability for lying or leaving. He told me, of course I'd choose God over you, and said I was the one who pushed him away and stomped on his heart. I have done so much to help him in life. I literally pulled him out of the gutter. I asked him how can he throw away 5 years of amazing memories and love together for something he's only been into for 3 weeks. He says it's because God healed him and I didn't. Honestly, I was willing to join the religion with him. I just had asked him to tone it down. He told me that I needed to find a new place to live immediately because I'm now standing in his way, and that he already got roommates to take my spot. From the church, of course. I took all of my money, he has nothing. $0 to his name. I said, "How are you going to pay rent with no job or money?" He told me he was fine for money. The church would take care of everything for him. But after he said that, he applied for a $4,000 credit card. I feel like I'm being thrown away like a piece of trash. 3 weeks ago, he was totally normal. Now he's done a complete 180. I told him to get psychiatric help, but he refuses. He says I'm the one who needs psychiatric help and to be saved by God. He says all my friends and family corrupted me by making me realize he was going crazy. I'm in shock and devastated. We just got engaged and we're so in love. He was the best partner. I miss him so much in our life together. We've been through so much, so good to me. My family wants nothing of him anymore. Should I try to salvage this? And what if he does come around and realize what a mistake he made? Should I take him back? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Take this as an opportunity to run. You are dodging a bullet. You probably missed red flags, but he is not joining a church, but a cult. If you stay and marry him, you will become secondary in the relationship. I'm sorry you are going through this, but move on from him. He chose a religious cult over you. Update me. Comment 2. This reminds me of people I have seen with bipolar in a manic phase. One guy I knew actually believed he was Jesus. Once medicated, he was a perfectly lovely man. But while in his manic phase, he could not be reasoned with. Unfortunately, there are many churches willing to prey on people like this. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments from my last post. So, after our big argument, things got even more complicated. The day after he told me to move out, I decided to stay at my sister's place for a few days to clear my head. I needed some space to think about everything that had happened. While I was there, he kept sending me mixed messages. One moment he was apologizing and saying he missed me, and the next he was telling me that God was guiding him and that I was a distraction from his spiritual journey. On the second day, I got a call from one of his new church friends. She told me that he had been talking about getting baptized and that he wanted me to be there for it. I was torn. Part of me wanted to support him, but another part of me felt like I was being dragged into something I wasn't ready for. I decided to go, hoping that maybe seeing me there would remind him of our relationship and bring him back to reality. When I arrived at the church, it was like stepping into a different world. Everyone was so welcoming, but it felt forced, like they were trying too hard to make me feel comfortable. The baptism ceremony was intense. He looked so happy, almost euphoric, and for a moment I thought maybe this was what he needed. But then, during the reception afterward, he barely acknowledged me. He was too busy talking to his new friends and the pastor. I felt like an outsider in his new life. That night, I confronted him about it. I told him how hurt I was that he was pushing me away and that I felt like I was losing him to this new obsession. He got defensive and said that I was being selfish and not supporting his spiritual growth. We ended up having another huge fight, and he stormed out, saying he needed to pray and seek guidance. The next day, I decided to go back to our apartment to pack some of my things. When I got there, I found a letter on the kitchen table. It was from him, and it was long and rambling. He wrote about how he felt like he was being called to a higher purpose, and that he couldn't let anything or anyone stand in his way. He said he still loved me, but that he needed to follow this path, even if it meant losing me. I was devastated. I sat on the floor and cried for what felt like hours. I couldn't believe that the man I loved, the man I had spent 5 years building a life with, was willing to throw it all away for something he had only been into for a few weeks. I felt so lost and alone. Later that evening, my sister called me and told me that she had heard from one of our mutual friends that he had been seen with another woman from the church. They were holding hands and looked very close. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal. How could he move on so quickly? I decided to confront him about it. When I got back to the apartment, he was there, packing his things. I asked him about the woman, and he admitted that they had been spending a lot of time together. He said that she understood his spiritual journey in a way that I couldn't. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe that he was already replacing me. We had another huge argument, and this time it got really heated. He accused me of not supporting him and trying to hold him back. I told him that he was being selfish and that he was throwing away everything we had built together. He said that he had to follow his heart and that if I couldn't accept that, then maybe it was best if we went our separate ways. I left the apartment that night, feeling more lost and alone than ever. I stayed with my sister for the next few days, trying to figure out what to do next. I knew that I couldn't keep living in limbo, waiting for him to come to his senses. I had to make a decision about my future. During this time, I started to think about our past and how we had gotten to this point. I remembered how we had met in college and how we had instantly clicked. We had been through so much together, from moving in together to supporting each other through tough times. I thought about all the good times we had shared and how much I had loved him. But I also started to see the cracks in our relationship. I realized that he had always been searching for something, whether it was a new hobby or a new job. He had never been content with what he had, and I had always been the one to pick up the pieces when the things didn't work out. I started to see that maybe this new obsession with religion was just another way for him to fill the void in his life. On the third day, I decided to go back to the apartment one last time to talk to him. I needed closure, and I needed to know if there was any chance of salvaging our relationship. When I got there, he was sitting on the couch, looking lost and confused. We talked for hours, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like we were really connecting. He admitted that he was scared and that he didn't know what he was doing. He said that he felt like he was being pulled in two different directions, and that he didn't know how to reconcile his new beliefs with our relationship. I told him that I loved him and that I was willing to support him, but that he needed to find a balance and not let this new obsession take over his life. In the end, we decided to take a break and give each other some space. I moved in with my sister temporarily, and he stayed at the apartment. We agreed to keep in touch and see if we could find a way to make things work. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, but I knew that it was the right thing to do. As I packed my things and left the apartment, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I needed to take care of myself and not let his new obsession consume me. I still love him, and I hope that we can find a way to make things work. But for now, I need to focus on my own well-being. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for divorcing my unstable husband? After he quit his job and suggested we live off-grid. In Idaho, I, 36-year-old female, have gotten to a point where I know it is not healthy for me to stay married to my husband, 39-year-old male. We have been married for 12 years. I almost filed for divorce last year, had a lawyer lined up and everything, but ended up choosing to stay for the sake of our kids, 9 years old, 7 years old, and 4 years old. Background. My husband has been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and is emotionally immature, unavailable, and experiences bouts of anger and rage that can be terrifying. When I almost divorced him last year, it was because I was constantly walking on eggshells, afraid of setting him off. When he gets mad, he throws things and breaks them, not at anyone yet. When I chose to stay last year, I told him it was under the condition that he work with a therapist to resolve his anger issues. He agreed, but all he ever did was take an online informational course about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. He is not medicated. The rage attacks calmed down but have started to resurface. This is now a little over a year later, and I realize I am again fawning over him and walking on eggshells to avoid making him angry, which I swore I would stop doing. I'm a stay-at-home mom and homeschool our older 2 kids. This was a mutual decision, but I will add that my husband has never been supportive of me working and is very anti-public school. I do love being home with the kids, and I realize that by divorcing, I will lose that since I will need to return to work. That's the biggest sticking point for me. Not only will I be blowing up their lives by getting a divorce, I'll also have to put them in public school, which will be another giant change and difficult adjustment. I have a degree and a solid work history, so I'm confident I can get a job to support my side of things in the divorce. I'm just so worried about the upheaval to my children. Husband has been at a job that he hates for several months now, and I agree it is a toxic work environment and very stressful for him. I have been trying my best to support him and help make things easier for him in any way I can. He keeps saying he has to get out of there, but he has only actually applied to one job because I prepared his resume and cover letter for him. He also keeps coming home with these grand plans for our life and what direction he plans to go with his career. One week he is going to stay at the job and start a side business. The next week he wants to apply to jobs in Idaho and move our family there. The next week he plans to get his commercial driver's license and change careers. The next week he wants to focus all his energy on buying land and living off-grid. I feel like I am on a constant emotional roller coaster with him, and it is causing me an insane amount of stress and anxiety. Last night I hit my breaking point. All day yesterday he was texting me about how much he hates his job, nothing new. Then, in the late afternoon, he sent a string of texts telling me that he fully intends to quit his job next week, even though he has nothing lined up. This sent me into an emotional tailspin as I was home with our 3 kids preparing dinner. I got incredibly upset that he would make such a huge decision without even talking to me about it first, and that he told me over text message. He said I was overreacting and not to freak out. When he got home, I was still upset, but was focusing on getting the kids to bed when he pulled me into our bedroom and said, "Hey, sometimes I just need you to be strong." He then got mad at me for not letting him vent. I didn't sleep last night because I was so stressed and worried. If he quits, we will have no income and no health insurance. Even if he doesn't actually do it, I don't think I can live with the fact that he would even put me through this kind of emotional turmoil of telling me he's going to quit and then getting mad at me for reacting to the news in the uncaring way he told me. I am at a loss for what to do here. I feel like I am married to an unpredictable child and I am over it. I want off the emotional roller coaster, but I am so terrified for my kids. They have a great home life. Even though my husband is emotionally unavailable to me and the cause of constant stress, we do not fight in front of the kids, and most of the time are kind and friendly toward one another. Should I wait and see if he actually quits his job? Should I start preparing my kids for a transition to public school? Should I just continue to suck it up for the sake of my kids' well-being? I feel like I know the answers, but maybe just need outsiders' opinions. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. We do not fight in front of the kids yet. We do not fight in front of the kids yet. And the kids are getting older. And the kids are getting older. They're going to start noticing stuff if they haven't already, and just don't know how to talk to you about it. They're going to start noticing things if they haven't already, and just don't know how to talk to you about it. They're going to start doing stuff that triggers their dad's temper at them. They're going to start doing things that trigger their dad's temper towards them. Maybe they're going to start wanting to go to school with other kids, despite his, frankly concerning, given the rest of the context, opposition. Maybe they're going to start wanting to go to school with other kids, despite his opposition, which is frankly concerning given the rest of the context. I know it's scary, but you're not actually making things better for them by taking on the burden of pretending everything is fine when it's not. I know it's scary, but you're not actually making things better for them by taking on the burden of pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Comment 2. Divorce. Divorce. Speaking from experience, if you have a horrible relationship and are miserable, the kids will know. Speaking from experience, if you have a horrible relationship and are miserable, the kids will know. I grew up in that environment and always wanted my parents to get divorced. I grew up in that environment and always wanted my parents to get divorced. I think it was a close thing, but when I was 12 and my sister was 10, my parents had twins to save the relationship. I think it was a close thing, but when I was 12 and my sister was 10, my parents had twins to save the relationship. It was horrible, and I moved out and joined the military as soon as I graduated. It was horrible, and I moved out and joined the military as soon as I graduated. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, a lot has happened since I last updated. After that night when my husband said he was going to quit his job, things escalated quickly. He did end up quitting his job the following week, just like he said he would. He came home that day with a big smile on his face, saying he felt liberated, and that this was the start of a new chapter for us. I was furious and scared out of my mind. We had no income, no health insurance, and no plan. He told me not to worry, that he had it all figured out, but I knew better. The next few days were a blur of arguments and tension. He spent most of his time at home, either on the computer looking at job listings or out in the garage working on some project. He was convinced he could start a side business and make enough money to support us. I tried to be supportive, but I was also frantically updating my resume and looking for jobs. I knew I couldn't rely on him to provide for us anymore. One night after the kids were in bed, we had a huge fight. I told him I couldn't take it anymore, that I was done living in constant fear and uncertainty. He accused me of not believing in him, of not being supportive. I told him I needed stability for our kids, that I couldn't keep living like this. He stormed out of the house and didn't come back until the next morning. That night was a turning point for me. I realized I couldn't keep putting my kids through this. I started looking into public schools in our area and found one that seemed like a good fit. I also reached out to a few friends who had gone through divorces to get their advice and support. I knew I had to start preparing for the worst. A few days later, my husband came to me with another grand plan. He wanted to move to Idaho and start fresh. He had found a piece of land for sale and was convinced we could live off-grid and be self-sufficient. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told him there was no way I was uprooting our kids and moving to another state with no job, no income, and no plan. He got angry and accused me of holding him back, of not being willing to take risks. That was the final straw for me. I told him I wanted a divorce. He was shocked and tried to convince me to give him another chance. But I was done. I couldn't keep living in this constant state of chaos and uncertainty. I needed stability for myself and my kids. The next few weeks were, interesting of emotions and preparations. I found a job at a local company and started making arrangements to enroll the kids in public school. It was a difficult transition for all of us, but I knew it was the right thing to do. My husband moved out and went to stay with a friend. He was still convinced he could make his off-grid dream a reality, but I knew better. The kids had a hard time adjusting to the new routine, but they eventually settled in. They made new friends at school and seemed to be doing well. I was proud of how resilient they were, but I also felt guilty for putting them through so much upheaval. I tried to be there for them as much as possible to reassure them that everything would be okay. One night after the kids were in bed, I sat down with a glass of wine and thought about everything that had happened. I realized that I had been living in fear for so long, afraid of what my husband might do next, that I had lost sight of my own needs and desires. I had been so focused on keeping the peace and protecting my kids that I had forgotten to take care of myself. I thought back to when we first got married, how full of hope and dreams we were. We had so many plans for our future, but somewhere along the way, things had gone off track. My husband's ADHD and emotional immaturity had taken a toll on our relationship, and I had been too afraid to confront it head on. I had been walking on eggshells for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to be truly happy and at peace. As I sat there, I realized that I had made the right decision. It was time to take control of my life and create a stable, loving environment for my kids. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to make it work. I had a good job, a supportive network of friends, and 3 amazing kids who deserved the best I could give them. In the weeks that followed, I focused on building a new life for myself and my kids. I made sure to spend quality time with them, to listen to their concerns and reassure them that everything would be okay. I also made time for myself to pursue my own interests and reconnect with old friends. It wasn't always easy, but I knew it was worth it. Looking back, I can see how far we've come. My husband and I are still in the process of finalizing our divorce, but I feel more at peace than I have in years. The kids are doing well in school and seem to be adjusting to the new routine. I know there will be challenges ahead, but I feel confident that we can handle them together. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to accept my father-in-law's girlfriend's apology after she had a meltdown over our baby? Some context, I will try to be concise, but it's kind of complicated and very dramatic. My husband, 34 years old, 33 years old. I have been together for 12 years. We got married in 2022 and had our first baby in 2023. We have been through a lot together that has made our relationship very strong, most notably the sudden and very traumatic death of his mom in 2018. I had already been part of the family for years and considered his dad, 58 years old, and sibling my family. So we all became even closer as we healed together. We encouraged my father-in-law to not stop living his life, and we're very supportive of him dating again. He has been with his girlfriend, 53 years old, since 2020. She has always displayed odd behavior and has been very insecure about their relationship, even going so far as to say that my father-in-law spent too much time with his kids and that he needed to let them grow up. She wouldn't admit this was because she was insecure, but that's how we interpret. This would be relayed from my father-in-law to my husband because he was on the fence about their relationship and would ask for advice. She wanted more of a commitment from him, but he didn't want to and would drag his feet. We concluded, hey, we are all adults. He could make his own choices, and that overall we were happy that she was pushing him to get out of the house, travel, and make new memories. She is divorced twice, has no children, and is from another country. So we thought that maybe we just had different perspectives on life too. We involved her in our family life. She was at our wedding and in family pictures, took a trip all together. We even talked about them helping when the baby arrived. The incident, LOL. After the baby was born, both my husband and I noticed she started acting more strange around us, particularly me, and that she would avoid coming to our apartment with my father-in-law. We were annoyed because we had all talked about them helping, but it wasn't to the point that we wanted to confront them. We felt like, okay, help would be nice, especially because they are the only family in the area. But maybe this is how they want to be grandparents. They prefer to travel and have fun. We respect that. Before I went back to work, we both have remote jobs. We struggled to secure childcare, and one night when they were visiting, baby sleeping in the other room, my husband asked if he could occasionally bring the baby to my father-in-law's apartment that he shares with his girlfriend, and he and my father-in-law could take care of baby together while I caught up on sleep, work, etc. at home. My father-in-law's girlfriend was clearly overwhelmed by this prospect and started spiraling a bit, saying their apartment was too small and asking who would take care of the baby. My husband? He would be there. My husband assured her it was just an idea and that we did not have to pursue this as an option. But she kept talking about it. I had not slept well, hello to the 15-week-old in the other room, and I was overall frustrated by the whole situation with so little support from our family. So I said somewhat sarcastically, "It sounds like you don't want to do it," hoping that honestly it would get her to chill out and end the conversation. She flipped deed out at me and proceeded to say that I have always had a problem with her, that I have behavioral issues, and that's why she doesn't visit us. This is why no one likes me, and that my husband should have married someone else. I was dumbfounded, and my husband told her to get out of his home. More explicit than that. My father-in-law got her out the door and met with my husband the next day to apologize and ask what he should do. He also disclosed to my husband that his girlfriend has said mean things about my husband and his sibling. It's been months, and while my father-in-law at first was saying he was planning to break up with his girlfriend, he now says that she is sorry and he wants us all to meet so she can apologize. We have not seen her since, and he does not come over very often. He won't stay long, and sometimes it feels like it's possible he has lied to her about where he was going. He wants to stay with her and wants to find a way forward. From the history of her behavior, the whole incident, and everything we have learned since, I am not confident this will go well. I feel like we are going to meet. She will either give a very weak apology and expect one from me. I do not plan to apologize because I don't think I have anything to apologize for, or that she will be disappointed that I am not immediately best friends with her, and it will cause more strain. Either way, we have been clear with his dad that we want an apology, that we are still upset, and that we are not exactly ready for a relationship with her. I also feel like she has this false narrative in her head that we don't accept their relationship after the death of his mom, and she is insecure about their relationship really due to his own commitment issues, and she is creating this dynamic in the family now that's really toxic, of trying to alienate my father-in-law from his family. I don't think it's intentional and think she's just really emotionally unwell. But the impacts are real, and I feel like I am somehow the focal point of all of this, which seems so unfair, especially considering that I just had this dang baby. We all used to be so close, but this has caused a huge family rift. My husband is so upset with his dad, but we don't want to give him an ultimatum. But we don't see how things could move forward with her in the picture. Advice needed. We are meeting my father-in-law and his girlfriend this evening for what my father-in-law says will be her apology. The baby will not be with us. I am incredibly anxious about it and don't really know how I want to act during this meeting. Family is important, and I feel like I am only doing this out of respect for my father-in-law and wanting my baby to have a relationship with him. But this feels so insane to me. What should I do, both in this meeting and going forward? Almost forgot. I had my wrong age, haha. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It sounds like you have your list of what you want. Go in focused on the goal, and try hard not to get involved if she tries to derail things by going off on ranty tangents. Sit silently and stare until she's done. Since the core relationship here is between your spouse and his dad, he should be prepared to take the lead for your family in the discussion. But talk with him ahead of time to agree on what is a real apology and what is absolutely not one, and what kind of contact you're willing to have with her at all going forward. There's probably nothing to be gained by going off on her yourself, as fun as it might be in the moment, and it sounds like she may be capable of just burning herself down if left alone. Comment 2. Talk to father-in-law on his own. He was married for a long time and has no frame of reference for dating. He just wants to find someone and call it a day. But that's not how it works. Dating is for trying things out and see if they work. It doesn't. She doesn't have kids, and it seems like she never wanted them. And that's okay for her, not for father-in-law. Let him know it's okay to break up with her so he can find someone more compatible. Let him know that the girlfriend's reactions are those of someone trying at all costs to make something work, when it's not a great fit for either of them. And he needs to make the adult decision so they can both move on and find better fit companions. Now for the update. Thanks for reading my last post. So, we had the meeting with my father-in-law and his girlfriend, and it was just as tense as I expected. We met at a neutral location, a small cafe that we all used to frequent before things got so complicated. My husband and I arrived early, and I could feel my anxiety building up as we waited. When they finally walked in, I could see the nervousness on my father-in-law's face, and his girlfriend looked like she was trying to put on a brave front. The conversation started awkwardly, with some small talk about the baby and our jobs. Then, my father-in-law gently nudged his girlfriend to start her apology. She took a deep breath and began to speak, but it was clear she was struggling to find the right words. She apologized for her outburst and admitted that she had been feeling insecure and overwhelmed. She said she didn't mean to hurt anyone, and that she was sorry for the things she said. I listened, trying to keep an open mind, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her apology was more about appeasing my father-in-law than genuinely making amends. My husband, on the other hand, was visibly upset. He told her that while he appreciated the apology, her actions had caused a lot of pain and that it would take time for us to rebuild trust. As the conversation continued, it became clear that my father-in-law's girlfriend was expecting some sort of reciprocal apology from me. She hinted that she felt attacked and misunderstood, and I could see my father-in-law looking at me, hoping I would say something to smooth things over, but I couldn't bring myself to apologize for something I didn't feel was my fault. I told her that while I was sorry for any misunderstandings, I stood by my actions and words because they were a reaction to her behavior. The meeting ended on a strained note, with my father-in-law looking disappointed and his girlfriend looking frustrated. We left the cafe feeling like nothing had really been resolved. My husband and I talked about it on the way home, and he admitted that he felt torn between supporting his dad and protecting our family from further drama. The next day, my father-in-law called my husband to talk about the meeting. He said he understood our feelings, but also asked us to give his girlfriend another chance. He mentioned that she'd been going through some personal issues, which might have contributed to her behavior. This was the first time we heard about any personal struggles she might be facing, and it made me wonder if there was more to the story. Over the next few days, we noticed that my father-in-law was making more of an effort to spend time with us, even if it was just for short visits. He seemed genuinely torn between his relationship and his family, and it was clear that he was trying to find a balance. My husband and I decided to give it some time and see how things played out, but we remained cautious. Then, something unexpected happened. My father-in-law's girlfriend reached out to me directly. She sent me a long message explaining her side of the story. She talked about her past relationships and how they had left her feeling insecure and anxious. She admitted that she'd been projecting her fears onto our family and that she was genuinely sorry for the pain she had caused. She also mentioned that she was seeing a therapist to work through her issues and asked if we could meet one-on-one to talk things through. I was hesitant at first, but after discussing it with my husband, I decided to meet her. We met at a park, and it was a surprisingly honest and emotional conversation. She opened up about her past, her fears, and how she felt like an outsider in our family. I could see that she was genuinely trying to make amends, and it made me realize that maybe there was a chance for us to move forward. As we talked, I shared some of my own struggles and how the whole situation had affected me. It was a difficult conversation, but it felt like a step in the right direction. We didn't become best friends overnight, but we both agreed to try and make things work for the sake of our family. In the days that followed, my father-in-law seemed more relaxed and happier. He started spending more time with us, and his girlfriend even joined us for a few family gatherings. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of tension, but it felt like we were slowly rebuilding the trust that had been broken. One evening, my husband and I were talking about everything that had happened, and he mentioned something that had been bothering him. He said that while he appreciated the efforts his dad and his girlfriend were making, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something they weren't telling us. He felt like there was a piece of the puzzle missing, and it made him uneasy. A few days later, we found out what that missing piece was. My father-in-law called us over for a family dinner, and during the meal, he dropped a bombshell. He revealed that his girlfriend had been diagnosed with a serious health condition a few months before the incident. She had been struggling with the diagnosis and the treatment, and it had taken a toll on her mental health. This was the first time we heard about it, and it explained a lot of her erratic behavior. It was a bittersweet moment. On one hand, we finally understood what had been driving her actions, and it made it easier to empathize with her. On the other hand, it was heartbreaking to learn about her health struggles and the impact they had on our family. My husband and I felt a mix of relief and sadness, knowing that while things might never be the same, we could at least try to move forward with a better understanding of each other. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.